It's the Pikey and Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. With Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show. We're talking Taipans, and once again, now that we're only 2 weeks out from the NBL Finals, another win for the Taipans on the weekend against the Illawarra Hawks. So we're ever so close to being able to say that we're locked in for a finals appearance from the Taipans, and we'll dissect all of that as we go along on this week's show. I'm Chris Pike, your co-host, but as the name suggests, my co-host is the man that you'll want to hear from, Alex Loughton. He's a Cairns Taipans legend. He's the man with all the opinions as well. Loughz, how do I find you this evening?
Mate, I'm very well. It's just another good day at the brewery, of course, for old Loughz. So, actually, I had a little bit of a scrimmage tonight with some players, some key personnel, and Lennon Smart from the Taipans took the session. Could be some sort of a Marlins type of session. I'm not too sure, but yeah, a bit of intrigue for the evening's activities for old Loughz. But keen to get started with Talkin Taipans. Now, Pikey, we've got a bit of exciting news. Are you ready to hear some exciting news?
Absolutely, always.
Well, mate, as you know, Cairns Total Physio and Statton's Plumbing Company have been staunch supporters of the Pikey and Loughz Show, Talkin Taipans, all throughout this 2019-2020 season. But we've got another sponsor on board, Pikey. I'm very excited to introduce Your Fitness. They're over there in the city, open 24 hours, and they're coming on board now. So without further ado, let's introduce our sponsors for today's show. This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life. Statton's Plumbing Company, plumbers who care. And Your Fitness, your body, your choice, your time, your fitness. So it's really good. The show's starting to get some momentum, Pikey, and I think it's a response from the people. I'm getting a lot of comments when I go to games. Oh, I love the podcast, love what you guys are doing. So it's a positive feedback, Pikey. So great job to you and your organising for this podcast to happen, and of course pumping out on social feed. But I think we're starting to get some traction.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's really just something that's come out of nowhere. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time, but
right.
it was just a bit of a brainwave that I had in the off season to think of something new that I could try to do this NBL season. So I obviously combined with the work I'm doing for the club, and you can check that out at the Taipans website. I thought, why not try to keep Loughzy involved, try to talk a bit about the Taipans, and have a look at us now where we've got some incredible sponsors on board who, let's be honest, we wouldn't be here anymore if they hadn't supported us throughout the whole season. So to have another one at this point of the season is fantastic, but I have a feeling that they're probably keen to support us because of the way the Taipans are playing as well. And like I said on the top of the show, that win over the Hawks on the weekend to close the regular season at home, ever so close now to being able to say that the Taipans are going to take part in the finals for this season.
Well, exactly right. Now, New Zealand Breakers are on. They've played 26 games, Pikey. They've got 2 more games to play. They could potentially, if Taipans drop these 3 away games, New Zealand could potentially tie on wins. Now, I think the percentages, they have a lower percentage than the Taipans. I should double check that before I say that.
They're 2 percentage points behind.
So even in a tiebreaker, Taipans had the edge. However, if they for some reason win by 30 points for their last 2 games, that might change things slightly. But I don't think it will by enough. So by my books, I'm saying the Taipans are locked away. But I mean, let's be honest. If the Taipans want to be a true playoff team, they will want to win one or 2 of these away games at least to bring in that confidence, keep that mojo going. That's been fueling their surge in the second half of this season. But away game in Adelaide, certainly going to be an interesting one given what's transpired over there, Pikey.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about it a little bit more later on when we get to the preview. But yeah, anytime you play play a team that can't make the playoffs, but then they've got the motivation of playing their last home game for the season. That's always an emotional thing, and there's plenty of speculation floating around now about their coach Joey Wright, and if this is if this will be his last season coaching the club. So that adds another level of intrigue. You've got players that will react differently to that, and of course at this point in the season you've got guys that are fighting to keep their careers alive, and they'll want to finish on a high note. So yeah, for the Taipans, you can't see this as a given just because Adelaide can't make the playoffs. You have to head over to Adelaide and treat this game as importantly as any other.
I think you're exactly right. I think this is a statement sort of position. There's a team on its knees. They haven't shown up the last few games, in my opinion. So there's obviously some struggles there. Do the Taipans put Adelaide to the sword and get the job done? They had a whole week's break. It's not a double header. It's just a clean one game this weekend. And based on the confidence of the Taipans' last few games, I'm seeing this as a definite W for the Taipans.
Yeah, and I think it has to be. And as you touched on, get this win and you're 100% guaranteed of playing finals. So the Taipans can't miss if they win one more of these 3 games. So it is massive. Wanted to get your thoughts on last week's game against the Illawarra Hawks. Terrific crowd at the Cairns Convention Centre, sold out crowd, almost 5,200 people in the building. Terrific atmosphere. The team played tremendously. A really, really big win, 99-75. And like you touched on last week, it was a chance for some other guys to get some minutes, and George Blagojevic made the most of those and ended up with 10 points. We saw Fabian Krislovic playing some big minutes again, and Cam Oliver didn't have to play big minutes. Majuk Deng took a bit of a knock early, didn't have to play big minutes. Nate Jarwai got little bit of extra time. Anthony Fisher had a good run out there. Jared Kenny had a good run. It was a blowout win, but you got a really good run into all 10 or 11 guys as well.
Yeah, look, it was fantastic to see the bench gets a good burn on the floor. And, as you mentioned, Blagojevic notching up double digits. I believe that will be, his biggest score of his career so far, which is great to see him notch that one up. And, he just looked calm out there. He was just potting free throws as well. Just finished well. So it was just solid and interesting for me to see that the whole bench, Machado, Oliver, DJ, Newell, they were on their feet applauding their teammates when the good play was happening. So it's been reciprocated from the stars to their young guys coming through. So that's it's just promising signs from a club, from a culture standpoint, that things are moving very well for the Taipans right now.
Talk me through the atmosphere in the building. It seemed from afar like the place was rocking and everyone as part of the Orange Army was having a fantastic time. It means that the Taipans have now finished the regular season 11-3 on their home floor. It's a fantastic record, and that old fortress is coming back. What was the feeling like in the building?
Well, it was mixed emotions, Pikey, because obviously it was a poignant moment at the start of the game in respect of Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
The jump ball happened and enter into the front court, and Machado put the ball down on the floor, and both teams just sort of embraced it, their teammates, and then the other team, out of respect for Kobe. So the 24-second shot clock violation goes off, and then the Illawarra Hawks inbound the ball in the backcourt and then put the ball down the floor, and the same thing happens. So there's an 8-second violation in the backcourt, returning the ball back to the Taipans. So both 24-second shot clock and 8-second shot clock go off, and Kobe Bryant obviously wearing the number 24 and the number 8, in his career. So just amazing sort of display to really respect a player that's one of the greatest of all time, alongside Michael Jordan and LeBron James still playing. But he's up there. So a real poignant start. But to the crowd, wow, 5,168 or something like that. Pretty,
that's right.
Big numbers, and you see the corners of the stadium absolutely pumping, and just great for this community, Pikey. You might not see it firsthand, but over here with bushfires, we're a tourism town in Cairns, and basically countries are telling their people, don't go to Australia, there's bushfires there, or Asian countries aren't, like China's not sending anyone out of China with the coronavirus. So a lot of businesses are feeling the effects of recent events. So the Taipans winning and playing so well, it really boosts the spirit of the community here, and it's been crucial, really. If it wasn't the case, a lot of people would be very sad, and businesses are struggling. But there's nothing to sort of really boost the spirits, and so the Taipans are really carrying the flag or holding the torch, so to speak, and really leading the charge and giving the people a boost. It's been like a medicine for a town that's sort of on its knees, just waiting for the tide to turn again. I mean, and it will pick up again with tourism, but those double knocks really send the numbers down, and a lot of businesses feel those flow-on effects. So a lot of emotion for the game, a lot of excitement, a lot of awesome highlights. Cam Oliver with the tribute dunk to Kobe Bryant gets off the 2 feet reverse jam with the double pump, and then a little strut back down the floor. DJ Newell potting threes and staring down the crowd. I actually locked eyes with him. I was holding a bit of deep fried chicken with my beer, and I was just like, "Oh, DJ!" He caught me. He caught Loughz in retirement. So it was fun. It was just fun and great atmosphere. Wish it could have been there, but just a perfect way to end the season.
How close of a connection does this team feel like they've got with the fans and the members? Is this as connected as you've ever seen a Taipans team with the community and with their fans, or what sort of team were you part of that you can compare this to? Well,
they've certainly they're showing really strong signs of good team culture. This is a team that really plays it up to the crowd. They're very showmanship-like. They're very entertaining, and I'm sure Mike Kelly would like to rein in a little bit of that celebration just to make sure that players concentrate on the next play. Like if it's a timeout or something, you've got a bit of leeway to extend your celebration, or you're flexing down the camera. But when it comes to mid-game flexing, you've got to quickly turn the page and get back on defense. But they've been really been able to play up to the crowd a lot, which has been really exciting. I know as much as anything that a good fist pump celebration will draw in the energy of the crowd, and that's what you want, and that's what's been delivered. I just sort of I cautioned when I was speaking on the radio before that with the playoffs, you don't want to see that disappear, but you do want to see it rein into that everyone's locked in, as long as it's not going too far and players are getting a bit loose in a tight game. Because let's face it, the last two teams that have played at the Convention Centre, Adelaide 36ers and Illawarra Hawks, have not been playoff. It's not been playoff basketball. Playoff basketball is going to be tight. It's going to be high stakes and really close sort of matches where you've got to be on point for the full 40 minutes. I think these last two games have been, it's been a lot more relaxed because they've put them to the opposition to the sword early, and then it's been party time. So it was certainly fun to be there and be a part of it. But the reality of playoff basketball will be a lot stronger competition. So they've got to keep their identity, Pikey. I think that's what I'm saying. Keep their identity, and because that those celebrations after a big and one or a dunk or whatever, they are important to the player because it boosts. It just gives them that little bit of extra confidence boost to do that. So that fuels the next player as well. So it is important. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, just that concentration issue that popped up earlier on in the season, I don't want to see that creep sort of back in with a bad habit of too lengthy a celebration. So as long as all that's in check, quick showboat or celebration or flex down the camera and move on quickly so that concentration is not a problem, then that's all fine by me.
Yeah, the impression I get is that game was almost the closing of the door on the regular season. There was a great celebration for everybody. Everyone in the building had a great time. The team had a great time. Everybody got to have their moment on the court. But it almost you closed the door on that now.
Everyone scored too, except for maybe Duffelmeyer, DP. He's 24 years old, so he's DP. Everyone except him got a bucket, so it was great contributions.
Yeah, and then I just think that the playoffs almost start now. I feel like these three road games are going to be great preparation for the playoffs, better than what those two home games have been like, as you mentioned. And even though Adelaide is out of contention, I feel like it's going to be potentially a playoff type atmosphere because of everything going on at Adelaide. I mean, the 36ers could come out and blow out the Taipans given everything they're going through, or they could completely fall apart and they might put in a shocking performance. I think it could go either way. But then you finish against Melbourne and you finish against Brisbane, who depending on what happens this weekend, both of them might still need to win those games to lock away a playoff spot, or in Melbourne's case, to be any sort of chance. So do you feel like these 3 games are going to be the perfect way to head into the playoffs?
Yeah, look, and I think the game of the round will be Brisbane versus New Zealand. And I think this game is... You've got to treat it like a playoff game. Whether the other team shows up or not, that's not on the Taipans. They've got to just treat this game like it's the most important one, because they want to put some good habits in place. You don't want to roll out of these last 3 games and going into that FIBA window, which is a 2-week break at the end of the regular season. There's a 2-week window that all teams will have to sit and wait until March 1 before the playoffs kick in. You don't want to go into that break, being sloppy and missing the mark on some behaviour that you promised your teammate you would deliver on, So you got to treat this game with full respect to the opposition and don't rest on your laurels, because, put those good systems in place and keep it rolling.
One last thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, and then I wanted to ask you a couple of general questions across the league about things that happened. We've got to mention Scotty Machado. He has set a new record for assists during a season in the 40-minute era. So over the last 11 seasons now, he's the first man to go past 200. So Cedric Jackson had 200 assists in one season at the New Zealand Breakers, but Scotty's now gone past 200. He's on 205. There's still 3 games to go. It's an incredible effort, especially considering he's also scoring 17 points a game.
I'll backtrack. The Cedric Jackson, assists set in for 200 assists in one season. I really admired the way he played, especially for New Zealand in those grand final, the three-peat. He was just a player that got things done and found his teammates. I was just like, that's a player I want on my team, like that kind of player.
You lost the grand final to his team, didn't you?
Sorry, yeah, New Zealand, took that grand final to us and put us to bed. We got one win at home against with a Ron Dorsey long range 3-ball to send it into overtime, which we eventually won. And listeners will know that game. That was a huge game.
Absolutely.
But Cedric Jackson he's just so annoying, like the way he just find players. But looking back on it, I'm like, man, I really respected what he could do. Yep. So Scotty Machado is that exact player, the one that I wanted, way back when I saw Cedric. So the way he's been playing and feeding his teammates and getting everyone involved, like it's so hard to stop when you've got so many contributors based on what the point guard can do. So 8 assists a game is incredible. Yep. He had 10 on the last home game. He's on 205 assists with 3 games to go. He's averaging 8. So what's that? Another 24 assists to go. So he could get to 230. So pretty impressive stuff and unique. Pike. Yeah, that's what the one thing I would say to listeners is that this is a very unique player that doesn't come along all that often, and when you do, you certainly want to lock them down for multiple years if that's even possible. Fingers crossed on that one. But yeah, just an incredible performance by Machado all year long, and he's certainly been the driver of their position right now on the ladder.
Absolutely. A couple of other things I want to get your thoughts on that happened across last weekend in the league. The last game of the round was in Wollongong. New Zealand Breakers were doing it pretty comfortably against the Illawarra Hawks, and all of a sudden the roof started to leak. We couldn't stop the roof from leaking. We had to stop the game with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. First of all, that probably doesn't happen anywhere except Wollongong. Unfortunately, there's a lot of problems with that building, and it's an ongoing issue. But secondly, what's the right decision made to keep the result from that point in the game, or what would have you done in that situation?
Well, you just wheel out the green garbage bin and say, guys, look, just be mindful of the garbage bin in the middle, and you keep playing. That's what we would have done at college trainings. I remember, just put out the towels and just watch out for this one. There's too much money at stake on the floor from the players' injury perspective. So the smart decision was to call the game off. Whether or not 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, New Zealand just went on a run and we're up by how much? 6
13.
Or 7.
They're up by 13.
Oh, they're up by 13. Okay. I think you just got to call it off and call it a day. You can't redo another game really. I mean, the Taipans had a blackout in Cairns against the Brisbane Bullets, and
you played that game. you were
I
playing?
played that game, and we were just talking with players and coaches on the court while it's still dark, and the secondary lights come on. But the thing is that there's no backup generator because it's in a low-lying swamp sort of area. Any backup generator could pretty much go underwater in a flood situation anyway. So the cost of keeping a generator going, probably $200,000 a year. So that doesn't help. That wasn't a decision to do that anyway. So convention centre, so because of the low-lying area, so there was no way out of it. There's a blackout in Cairns, and then that's the end result. If it's after half time, I think that's when they can actually make that call. If it happens before half time, you can do a rematch.
Yep.
But 3 minutes to go in the third in Wollongong, rain coming through. That's curtains.
Yeah, I think the right decision was made. I think it was the only thing that could have been done to have to.
What if it was Brisbane? What if it was Brisbane versus New Zealand, and the winner of this game goes through to the playoffs? Like, what happens there, Pikey? What do you think?
Well, if that's the case, if I'm the team that's losing, then I don't let that happen. I appeal the decision. I would think, and I at least want the game replayed from that point in the game. That's what I would want if I was the team behind. But if I was the team in front, I would sure as hell want the result to stand.
So you don't play the whole game again.
I don't think so. I think you restart it from that point.
You warm up. You bring the fans back in. You warm up, and
maybe you don't even bring fans back in. Maybe you play in an empty building.
So then the home team's like, well, where's our home court advantage from the fourth quarter? It's a hard one, man. It's a
hard one when to do it too. If you do it during the FIBA window, if you're New Zealand, you've got half your team that's playing for the Tall Blacks. So how do you all of a sudden you're disadvantaged? One of your either your international team or your NBL team has to lose half their team.
It would have to be something that's consistent across the board. Like it would be heartbreaking if that's the case. But I mean, to be consistent, I think the game would be called. But man, you go down at the end of the season, like, man, we busted our butt to claw our way back into the finals contention, only to have someone probably it could be scandal. Someone could be like dropping water from the roof, saying, "Oh, it's leaking, it's leaking," because the bullets are up. The bullets are up.
And even 3 minutes before, the Hawks had made their own run, and they 6 points the difference in the game. So I imagine if the Hawks' season was still alive, that they probably wouldn't have let the result stand without putting up a fight. But I don't know what the right result would have been from there.
Get a new roof.
Well, going back to the game, the game where you lost power up in Cairns, I know it was very late in the game.
There was crazy thunderstorm and a power out. So it was thunderstorms actually a little bit further south, and they were creeping up. And for some reason, it just came too close, and it was too strong, and just cut everything out in that whole area. So
I remember thinking that most of us thought that there was no way that you'd be able to come back to win, so Brisbane deserved to get the win. But from a Taipans perspective at that time, did you feel like there was still time to win the game?
I think so. I think it was a single-digit lead, like 6 or 7 or something, because, everyone was like, well, what do we do? Now I think we just had a bit of momentum. So, it's a tough one and unfortunate. But you got to sort of, can't control it, really.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life. Statton's Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care. And Your Fitness. Your body, your choice, your time, your fitness.
Now, you've touched on it before. You talked about the Brisbane Bullets New Zealand Breakers game this Friday night in Brisbane. It could very much end up deciding which of those two teams finishes in fourth. I think I don't think Melbourne is a realistic chance from here, even though mathematically they can still make it. Who do you think wins the game, and who do you think is going to finish fourth out of those two? Because
Brisbane have played 25 games, so they got 3 left.
It could come down to
I believe New Zealand's got 2 left. So I mean, it ties them up and puts huge pressure if New Zealand get the win. I think Brisbane are going to hold fort. They've just been playing too good, and Lamar Patterson's been really solid, just putting up big numbers and getting buckets when they really need it most. And then Glidden's been chipping in his 3 ball when he needs to, and they all seem to be sort of playing pretty well. They might have found their groove, and but New Zealand, on the other hand, they've surprised a lot of people, and led by Scotty Hobson and the point guard, a tall point guard. He's towers over his opponent normally, and got a really high elevation on his jump shot. I really like him. I think he's it's a shame that he got injured for the Breakers, so he certainly would have changed things up a lot for them in the start of that year and the turmoil that ensued. But it's going to be a cracker. I think Brisbane might have the edge because of the home court and the momentum they've had. But I mean, there's so much on the line. Certainly can't wait to watch it.
Of those two teams, which one do you see as being more dangerous come playoff time? Say they end up playing Sydney in a semi-final series. Do you think the Bullets or the Breakers would be more capable of causing an upset?
It is tough. Look, I think it's almost a coin toss. I think Brisbane are going to edge out New Zealand for me. They've just got a couple of players in like a couple of good players in each position. So even Will Magnay and Matt Hodgson. I mean, Magnay's kind of eclipsing Hodgson in minutes and contributions lately.
Yeah, but they've been starting them both together, and it's been working.
Yeah. I mean, they've just sort of found combinations that are sort of deadly. So they've got rim protection, they've got big scoring 3-man, they've got Aussie guards, they've got lots of things that have finally sort of come into fruition. So it's an interesting one, and just. You kind of didn't see that one coming either, because they were in bad shape for a lot of the season, but managed to string some wins together and get on a streak and sort of surprised a lot of people. So they've obviously got pretty good leadership. I know the other imports were sort of contributing to that leadership side of things, even though their jobs were sort of on the line and under spotlight and question marks alongside Jay Singler and Braun as well, like whether they'd be around for the whole season. But yeah, I mean, credit to them. They've really found their groove. So it's an interesting one.
Do you give Melbourne United any slight chance of still making it? They need to win their last 3 games, and they play the Illawarra Hawks this weekend, and then they finish hosting the Taipans and then playing the Phoenix in the last round. They need to win all 3. They need to win by big margins, and then they also need some help from either Brisbane or New Zealand to not win, I guess, beyond when they play each other this weekend. Do you give Melbourne any sort of a sniff?
Well, not by the way they were playing. I remember the game versus Sydney not too long ago. It was like 17 or 18 assists to Sydney to Melbourne United's 5. Yep. So it's basically whoever gets the ball either in the backcourt or the first pass out, they're going to go, well, it's my turn to jack up something. So they didn't have a good game, that one. And I didn't really rate how they were playing. So I'm not sensing any harmony there. I'm not sensing players in sync with each other. I'm really not sensing any momentum to close out the late part of this season. So I think they're done and dusted, and they'll look in a different direction for next year with some players.
Yeah, and they're coming off the loss to Brisbane, which I think pretty much meant that they're pretty much done. But Melo Trimble, you played with him last season. How do you sense he would have responded to coming off the bench?
Well, he's such a prolific scorer. I think where he's come undone a bit this year is it's sort of exposed maybe more sort of that leadership side of things and the ability to get the teammates involved. He's certainly been scoring well, but the team hasn't been servicing a lot of their other really talented, highly priced players as well. So he's very young. Look, it's a maturity thing as well. We've got a 28-year-old Scott Machado at the helm, and he's a pass-first guard anyway. I mean, Melo Trimble's a score-first guard, pass sort of second. That can work if you've got leadership in other areas, but you've got a young Sean Long, you've got a young Melo Trimble. There's a lot of young heads there. I'm not sensing the leadership on court from your floor general type thing. So maybe there's a veteran ball handler that would sort of show him the way. But I mean, they've got some old heads in there, in Dave Barlow and Chris Golding. But Chris Golding's a shooting guard. He's not, and he's a scorer as well. He's not like a team leader type of guy. Dave Barlow is very quiet as well. He's a consummate professional, Dave Barlow, and had a great career, but he's not a vocal kind of guy. So there's no one to really.
I don't think Mitch McCarron is either, is he?
No, Mitch McCarron. Yeah, Mitch McCarron is goes about his business and does it well, and he's very methodical and But so I can sense his frustration on the court, just that sort of vacant look when things aren't going well, and you could just see his frustration. But they're just not in sync, and I think it's a bit of a maturity thing. It's just not quite working for them. So it definitely won't be that direction for next year. Players that are out of contract might even be looking elsewhere. Don't be surprised if Mitch McCarron joins up with Sydney Kings and Will Weaver. On the Boomers squad, he raved about the assistant coach Will Weaver, who was new to everyone, saying how cool it was. So those players tend to a la Brisbane, where Boomers players Sobey, Glidden have been drawn to Lemanis, and Hodgson drawn to Lemanis after Boomers camps, where they had a good time. All of a sudden now they're playing for the coach, and now Will Weaver's locked into the Boomers to take over Brett Brown for that FIBA window. He's in a very high position for the Boomers side of things. Don't be surprised if a move like Mitch McCarron to Will Weaver territory eventuates at some point. Either, not sure what his contract's year is, but just things like that. But I mean, a bad season will make players think like that. Yep. They don't want a bar of it the next year. They want out or they want change. Otherwise, they'll take their skills elsewhere.
Now, speaking of contracts and speaking of highly sought after people, Mike Kelly is now out of contract with the Taipans at the end of this season, and he hasn't been re-signed yet. I don't think there's any doubt in the world that he's done a fantastic job, and I don't think there's any doubt in the world that he's the coach of the year in the NBL this season. But now that it looks like there's a job available at Adelaide, and there could be potentially other jobs available, if you're the Taipans, how quickly do you want to sign him up?
Is it a case of how quickly do you want to sign him up, or is it a case of when do we release this information publicly?
Sure.
I find it hard to think that they don't have him signed up already, and they're just waiting for the right time to not distract anyone. I'd say that one would be locked away well and truly by now.
Let's hope so, because we all want to see him come back.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a great season he's been able to steer this thing, from the depths of despair into the heights of prosperity, and he's done a great job. He's been consistent. He's been hardworking. He's putting in long hours, just like the job calls for that. But he's got the passion as well. So I mean, such a great season. If they can lock away some pillars in the playing sort of group, Mike makes up that fourth pillar, I guess. If you want your three main horses, three studs in the stable, plus Mike holding it down as well, you get consistency and you get continuity. So it'd be a no-brainer to sign him. I would actually. You said a lockdown for Coach of the Year. I'm going to put Will Weaver into that mix. He's come out fresh-faced, doesn't know the league. He's steered a team on paper that right now does not have a candidate for MVP.
No.
Yes, Casper Ware, but let's be honest, my top five do not include any Sydney players. I got Bogut in the second team and Casper as a maybe in the third team.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if they have someone in the top 10. I think you're right.
So I'm saying that he's steered a team that hasn't had a standout star just killing into top of the ladder for the whole season. He's got a case for Coach of the Year, Will Weaver, and it's pretty impressive. I think Mike's ascension with the team is certainly the most improved, but and nothing to be discredited from Mike by any means. But I feel like Will Weaver's got a case for Coach of the Year, but it's only between those two, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, shout out to Gleeson doing his thing with some really good personnel and being solid and consistent. But just for me, Will Weaver has a sniff here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I absolutely. Sometimes just because you have a high rolling team and you're spending a lot of money doesn't mean that you can always bring it together. Have a look at Melbourne. They're probably spending close to the amount of money that Sydney is this season, and they're certainly not performing anywhere near it. So the coach deserves a lot of credit for that. And sometimes it's harder to bring superstars together to all play together than it is to bring a group of lesser players together to play as a team, just because you got to deal with the ego. So I think, and the fact that he's come out here and done it in his first season in the country, it's not like he's an Australian coming back home at all. So I think you're right, but I still think Mike gets the award, and I hope that he does. But I'm glad you segued into the awards. The NBL this week released their nominees for each of the awards that will be announced in a couple of weeks, and wanted to run through the Taipans players nominated and see if we've got any winners on our hands. Let's start with the MVP. They released 15 players, I think, eligible for the award, and 3 of those are from the Taipans. There's Scotty Machado, DJ Newberlin, and Cam Oliver, and I think all of them probably make the all-first or all-second team once that's announced, so they're all among the top 10 players in the league pretty much. But in terms of MVP, have you still got Scotty Machado just falling short of Bryce Cotton, or how are you feeling?
Well, he's certainly edging ever closer to Bryce Cotton in terms of the numbers, the outstanding year, the uniqueness of it all. I guess it depends how the judging panel sort of decide. Like, I think it's getting closer toss-up. You know, you got Bryce, who's just an absolute gun, individually able to carry a team from three-point land to mid-range to everything. Like, he's a scorer that can get you grand finals. Scotty Machado's a distributor and then a scorer that can activate and mobilize an entire team. So traditionally, it's been the best individual player that can put points on the board that will, give them success. Scotty Machado's way he's gone about it in a much more broader sort of sense, a different sort of track. So I don't think we've seen two players so different lined up. Usually you've got a player that's maybe had 5 or 6 assists, but 18 points. Does that match up against a 22-point Bryce Cotton with averaging 3 assists? Well, it's different. It's an 8 assist, a league leader, record holder, assist getter, and 16, 17 point a game getter, changing games, but he certainly steers the game and manages the clock so well. It's on his terms, so it's I think for my money, I think Bryce is going to get it. It comes from players and coaches voting, and they're going to go, man, he was tough. Bryce was just really tough, So I think they'll say the same. Similar thing to Scotty Machado, but other votes might go to Cam Oliver. Man, he was big. He might have rolled some teams in a series, whereas Bryce was the only shining light that would pull the votes from all the games, kind of thing, So maybe the depth of those 3, it might be the detriment of an MVP thing, because Cam Oliver might have pulled some votes. I think Cam and Scotty Machado will be NBL first team. Yep. And I think DJ will make second team. So it's if it goes that way, it'd be a huge coup for the club, and set the stage for some pretty epic playoff games. So I think that's the way Loughz is going to observe it and call it. I'm going to call Bryce Cotton will get MVP, but I hope that Scotty can clinch it and sort of buck the trend a bit, and be rewarded for what's been an awesome season.
The X factor is Lamar Patterson. Is there any chance that he pips both of them?
No, he's in my first team at the 3 spot.
Yep.
He's in my first team at the 3 spot.
I think they're clearly the top 3. I think they're clearly top 3, aren't they?
I think so. I've got the reason why I've got Lamar not getting MVP is because Bryce has kept the Wildcats at second. Scotty's steered the Taipans to hopefully third. By the time the voting closes, that's where it stands on the ladder. Yep. But Lamar certainly had free reign to do as he pleases and done really well. I just wish he'd come into the season in shape to maximise his numbers throughout the whole season rather than taking up until Christmas I know he plays as a heavier player, and that's been his advantage. He uses his weight well.
But he's clearly in much better shape now, isn't he, than he started?
Oh, he's awesome now. Yeah. He's unstoppable, and imagine, I just think, just come in 3 or 4 kilos lighter, so that you're ready to go, and then you've got a chance at not digging a hole at the start and having to play catch up. But he's certainly been huge this year.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about Saturday night's game, and then we'll wrap up the show for this week. It's in Adelaide Entertainment Centre. Last home game of the season for the 36ers. We've touched on the dramas that they've been going through. There's been plenty of infighting amongst their players. You only have to watch them on the court when they play games to see that. There's the potential that Joey Wright is about to coach his last 1 or 2 games at the club. But they've been playing good basketball on their new home floor. It's a building the Taipans have never won at. The home team in this series have won all the games so far, so the Taipans have done well at home against Adelaide, but they lost on their one trip to Adelaide. I guess the Taipans have the knowledge, knowing that if they win, they're officially guaranteed a playoff spot, but you're just playing against a team that you don't know what to expect from. How tough is that to prepare for?
Well, their loss in Adelaide was only by a couple points.
Close.
It was. I feel like it was really close, and they played their hearts out. This is a team that's sort of battered and bruised. 101 to 10 what?
101 to 97.
There you go.
Yep.
4 points. Loughz is pretty close.
Yeah.
A team that's on its knees and maybe they don't care about getting back up again. They might have checked out, or they might have a blinder, like you said. You just don't know what you're going to get. Interesting. Joey Wright just seems to be not happy. They're not happy with the season. He's not happy with the season. Something's going to change, and maybe he jumps the gun and finishes on his own terms or something. But there's certainly been a lot of unrest. You can sense that from their body language, their last few games, and the one up at the Cairns Convention Centre. So, I mean, it's a tough gig coaching, right? It's really hard. You're the disciplinarian of your team. The buck stops with you. There's no sort of stats except for the win-loss column. Like, it's a tough business. There's only 8 jobs available, and Joey's held it down for so many years and had to deal with all the BS that goes with players and all the emotions and things of your team and everything like that. But I mean, you are in charge.
He's had 2 clubs fold while he's been coaching them underneath him.
Yeah, but I mean in Brisbane they had a great championship win, and then it was ABC Learning that tanked and went under. So the owner of the Brisbane Bullets, his business went down. I mean that's not a direct relation to Joey.
No, and then something similar at Gold Coast.
But he's had to on the Gold Coast that business. Sports is hard on the Gold Coast. It's really hard to get a team to be successful given the climate there. So I mean he's certainly carved out I think a pretty respectable career in the NBL, and
he's going to finish on 500 games at the end of this season. That's pretty incredible.
Oh, it's a huge nod to what he's been able to achieve, and that NBL championship, I remember in 2006-2007 with the Brisbane Bullets. They just had an awesome team. Dusty Reichart was on the squad as well. Yep. Sam McKinnon, of course. They had a squad.
CJ Bruton,
Ebiara. Oh, yeah. No, so, it was that would have been probably his best memory. The Adelaide 36ers went to that grand final against Melbourne United 2 years ago. That was probably one of the next best teams that he's had. So he's had some really high-level basketball output.
He even had a really good Gold Coast team there for a little bit. That almost got to the grand final.
Yeah. I think and I don't know which year but there was a Golding, Chris Golding. We played for him as well. Werther was up there. William Gibbo was there too.
I think they just had an injury in the semi-finals to Ayunda Yubaka, which cost them pretty much.
But they've had some good players. But he's certainly he's been a fiery coach. He's incited tech fouls when he needed to. Tech fouls from the bench when he's needed to fire up his players. I remember that one game in Melbourne. He's like, "Give me a tech, ref. Give me a tech. Send me out. Send me out."
With Michael Allen.
I'll give you a tech, Joe. I'll give you a tech. Like, give me a tech then. And he gives him a tech, and then that's his second tech, and he's got to leave the game at halftime. He's like, "Sweet, I'm going to the pub." Yep. But so he's a very jovial character, or a very enigmatic character. So he's sort of fun to watch. And I mean, if this is his last game and he's out of the league, then it'll be sort of sad to see him go. Maybe some players that have played for him might not see it that way. Maybe they'd be happy to see him move on and end their turmoil. But I think if you play for Joey, you've got tough skin, and you have your confrontations, and then you move on. Like a lot of young players coming in aren't very thick-skinned. They want to be coddled, and they feel entitled, and Joey gives it to them old school. So, I think a lot of listeners will know that sort of style of leadership and maybe have experienced leaders like that. But you got to kind of take it on the chin and move on, and I think that's been Joey's mantra is, deal with it and move on. Like, let's go. Like, let's fight, let's compete. And I think I admire that in Joey's sort of culture that he brings.
So from a Taipans perspective, how do you go in and block out whatever the opposition is dealing with and just go about your business and play a good game? What do the Taipans have to do to make sure that they just go in and get the job done?
Look, it's just eyes on the prize. I think they know what's at stake. They've got to be locked in. They know to a man that they've had each other's backs, and that needs to continue. So fingers crossed, everyone stays healthy. Everyone's contributing as much as they'd like, and the numbers keep rolling in. So I think they'll be very focused and hoping to, like you said earlier, treat this like a playoff game and get the result as such.
Do you expect to finally see Courtney back in the team?
I don't know. I mean, it's a high ankle sprain, so not your regular ligaments that go over on a ankle turn or on a rolled ankle. It's on the top side of the ankle, so it's the normal recovery is 6 to 7 weeks. 7 weeks to be extra cautious, and that was last week, marked 7 weeks. So he's right on the edge of coming back, except for maybe a fitness test. So I'd say, with the luxury of maybe getting this win or playing the players playing well, then might rest him. But it's got to be close. It's got to be. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple games under his belt, and then that FIBA window to sort of maybe rest and recalibrate. But I think he's pretty close to a return.
Now, before I let you loose with your final thoughts, something you opened the show with, I need to go back and see if I can pin you down on something. Obviously, the QBL has now become teamed up with NBL 1, so we'll wait and see what that does for the competition. Cairns Marlins will be part of that. You've had a training session with the Marlins. Are you suiting up again in 2020?
Look, we'll explore that. I'll get back to you later. I don't know yet. Okay. We were having a bit of a scrimmage today. It was great to run around. I play a bit on Monday nights as well in A grade, and it's always a bit of fun. But if the Marlins get it right, they've got a bit of an opportunity to put a pretty cool squad together. A couple of old names and some Taipans type of players. There could be quite a squad. So watch this space. If I'm not in it, don't watch this space. But if I am in it, you'll hear about it. We'll just play that one by ear. But at this stage, just getting a bit of training in with some of the players that are around or on the peripheral. A bit of fun, and it's good to kind of run up and down and get a bit of exercise as well. So it's good to play a bit. What
about for the clubs back home in Perth? You've had a couple of brief stints in the SBL back in Perth over the last couple of years. You've got some old mates and old foes that are running around, like Mark Worthington, who's coaching, and Sean Redditch is still going to be pulling on the boots. Is there any chance any of the WA clubs should give you a call? Is there a point?
Not really. Loughzy's got a 9 to 5 and keen to keep that job. Okay. So I don't have the luxury of time, unfortunately. But
so save your phone calls.
Always willing to take a phone call.
All right, Loughz. Now, massive game for the Cairns Taipans on Saturday against the Adelaide 36ers. We get the win and we're locked in for the playoffs. If we keep winning over the last round of the season, we could still end up finishing second as well. That would be an incredible achievement. So we'll keep an eye on what's happening. Thanks again to our 3 major sponsors now on the show. Thanks ever so much for supporting us here on the Pikey and Loughz Show. We couldn't be doing this Talkin Taipans podcast without your support, so we can't thank you enough. Now, as we leave you for another week, let's get some final thoughts from Loughz.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life. Statton's Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care. And Your Fitness. Your body, your choice, your time, your fitness. The Taipans heading to Adelaide, and Loughzy's predicting an 8-point win. Let's continue to support the lads as our spirits get lifted in tough times in Cairns. But with the Taipans, anything is possible, and we can't wait to see some more success. Follow the lads, and we'll catch up with you next week.